There is good and evil in this world, and
Yeah.
I know you've seen it.
You're gonna become a dirty politician.
There's a bunch of guys that did this same types of jobs that we used to do that are recognizing how much trouble we're in. And they're like, okay, foreign and domestic, I'll go. If you talk like that, you can get killed. You can be thrown into prison. You have two choices. You surrender or you're dead. I know some people have different answers for where that comes from. But I think it's spiritual, man.
If and when you become a congressman, what are you gonna do when that big suitcase full of money is staring at you right in the face? What's going down? We got another phenomenal SRS episode coming at you. This one is a former SEAL sniper running for Congress in Arizona. We dive deep, as always, and the second half of this episode is actually on Rumble. I don't make the rules. I can't control it. It's not friendly on this platform. So it's over on Rumble. You can go down to the link in the description and head over there after this interview if you want to watch that portion. If not, that's fine too. But I do have an ask. I've said it before, guys. It really is getting harder and harder to reach the audience on this platform. So what helps is when you like, comment, subscribe, turn the notification bell to all. Hopefully you get notified. If you don't, there's not really much else I can do. But here is the good news. There is good news. The gummy bear famine is now over. So head over to vigilanceelite.com. Get your hands on some while they last, because they never last long. But hey, thank you all for being here. Love you guys. My family loves you guys. And if you need me, I'll be out here in the woods hiding out from everybody else. All right, love you. Enjoy the show. Bye-bye. Hey guys, let me tell you about this subscription service that I've been working real hard on called Vigilance Elite Patreon. Basically on Patreon, we have it broken up into 3 different tiers. We got tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3. Let's dive in. Our tier 1 patrons get all the behind the scenes footage of the Shawn Ryan show. That could include behind the scenes photos, that could be side conversations that we have in between breaks, that could be specific questions that our patrons give us for the guest on the Shawn Ryan show, and a ton of bonus content that doesn't really fit into any specific category. For our tier 2 patrons, they get access to our tactical training library, which consists of well over 100 videos. We've broken those videos up into separate categories, and those categories are rifle fundamentals, pistol fundamentals, drills, tactics, driving, gear and weapon setups, and everybody's favorite, mindset. Also on Tier 2, you will get a live update from me on the 1st and the 15th of every month, where we talk about the upcoming guests on the Shawn Ryan show, plus all the benefits of Tier 1. Our top tier, which is Tier 3, gets full access to all the other tiers, plus they get full access to me, where we do video teleconferencing, VTC, once a month. We discuss anything from tactics to current events to who's coming on the show. I take suggestions, and it's very interactive. No matter what tier you choose, the support is greatly appreciated, and it is the only thing that makes this show drive on. So thank you for all the support. See you on Patreon. Eli Crane, welcome to the show, man. So you are a Navy SEAL sniper, entrepreneur, bottle breacher company, won on Shark Tank, and now you're going into Congress. You're running for Congress in Arizona.
Yep.
You're going to become a dirty politician.
I know, man. Just having people even say that, it's hard to even hear, you know, politician, because there's such negative connotation with it, and for good reason.
Well, you know, I listened to a couple of your podcasts, and I heard you say on one that when you were going into the SEAL teams that you had to stand up for the country.
Yep.
It was after 9/11, and when you said it, you made it sound like you were never going to have to do that again. And now here you are again, standing up for the country, doing something that I don't think you really want to do. You're doing it for the betterment of the country, and that's very commendable.
Yeah, politics is never something that I wanted to do, and it doesn't mean that I haven't been interested in it, because I've always found it fascinating. But actually getting in that arena is something that I never wanted to do. I think that's the biggest difference when I look at, because I see a lot of similarities when I look at joining the Navy the week after 9/11 in wanting to serve in that capacity. I see a lot of similarities between right now wanting to run for office. But, you know, that's definitely one of the biggest differences, is that I wanted to be a SEAL for a very long time, and I worked very hard to get there. This is something that I really never wanted to do, never planned to do, but I'm just so concerned about this country right now that you can't complain about it if you're not willing to do something about it, right?
Yeah. Well, I got to be honest, you know, you seem a lot different than most of the politicians that I've met. Most of the politicians have like a little peppy attitude, and it's almost like an elevator sales pitch, and you're very calm, collected, to the point. I don't think you really care what people think. You're just going to say it how it is. And I got to be honest, like, that's really refreshing to see, especially at dinner last night when we were talking about all these different things. But before you do go into office, I wanted to give you a little present here. And
Oh boy. Better be some damn gummy bears in here. I heard about the gummy bears.
I mean, if you do get elected, maybe you can pass those out over there in Congress and lighten some of these assholes up.
Are these as good as Harborough gummy bears?
They're better.
They're better than Harborough, dude?
Try 'em.
Oh my goodness.
And you got me something.
I do like some gummy bears. Thank you, man. It's an awesome cap. Awesome. That is awesome. Thank you, Shawn.
You're welcome. And then you got me something from your company, Bottle Breacher, so.
That's right. We call that the Moab, the mother of all breachers.
Oh, damn.
It's a 30 millimeter bottle breacher.
That's serious.
It is serious, man. So the case is real. Once fired, and then the projectile, because we have to machine those, because you can't get those.
This was fired.
The casing
Nice.
it's once fired brass, yeah.
That's awesome, man. I'm going to have you sign this, and it's going to go right over there on the set. So,
Awesome.
dude, this is cool. Thank you. But, well, I want to get right into the interview, but before we do, I just want to say, you know, we'll start with childhood. I want to talk a lot about your sniper career, because we haven't talked about that with any other Spec Ops guest on here. So I'd really like to dig into that, get into your transition, how you became an entrepreneur, and then we'll get into the dirty politics. And so how I want to do it is we'll take break whenever we want. When we hit the dirty politics, this show is going over to Rumble. So you want to talk about some things, not everything's YouTube friendly. And so I'm linking the Rumble description below. So when we get to that point, if you want to listen to the politics and your opinions and views and how you think we should be going as how we should take the country in a new direction, that will all be over on Rumble. So, but let's start with childhood. Where'd you grow up?
I actually was born in Tucson, Arizona, and I was raised in Yuma, Arizona.
In Yuma.
Yeah. Yeah. My dad moved us down there. He was a pharmacist, and he went to pharmacy school at the University of Arizona in Tucson, and then moved the family down to Yuma because there were some good job openings down there. And so it ended up being, an interesting place to grow up because it's in the desert. It's one of the hottest places in the country. I think looking back on my life to this point, I think one of the things that made it funny was, I did 3 tours in Iraq, and a lot of my buddies were always complaining about the heat. And I was like, this is kind of like being from Yuma, with Arabic street signs. So, Yuma has some of the best Mexican food in the world. We've got sand dunes right outside of Yuma. Once you cross right into California, because Yuma's right on the California border. But like if you like to, off-road or, go to the lake, Yuma's a pretty cool place.
Really?
Yeah.
What'd you like to do as a kid?
I love to play football. I love playing sports. Football was my passion. And, I also loved to shoot when I got the opportunity to shoot. I was just, fascinated with, hunting with my BB gun, my pellet rifle, whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good family life?
Yeah. Yeah, it was pretty good. Until right around the time I was about 17, and then my family was pretty much blown up. But yeah, I consider myself lucky to have had both my parents until I was 17. So.
Do you want to go into that at all, or?
I don't mind going into it at all.
What happened at 17?
My parents got divorced. There was some infidelity in the home, and my parents decided to split. And in a way, I'm grateful for it because I got to see, firsthand what that can do to a family. And I think a lot of times stuff like that can be generational. And so it was good for me because in ways because I wanted to make sure that was never something I brought into my family. Yeah. And to protect my family because I saw the fallout, I saw the aftermath of it. And I never wanted my kids to experience that. And it doesn't, stuff like that, when a family, gets destroyed like that, it doesn't just affect, the people directly involved. I mean, it has collateral damage throughout friend groups and, all sorts of things. And so in a way, I'm glad I got to experience that and just the pain and the hurt that comes with it so that I can, remember how it felt and make sure that I never do anything like that.
Wow. Did you have any brothers and sisters?
Yeah, I've got 2 brothers. I've got an older brother named Zach. He's a chemist in Colorado. And then my younger brother, Gabe, he's a lawyer now, but he was, and I think he's still in the Marine Reserves, but he was a Cobra pilot.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, graduated from the Naval Academy. It's kind of cool. He's 2 years younger than me, but it's kind of cool, man. For a good while there, my little brother kind of became my hero because, I remember growing up and wanting to play football, and when I started to realize that probably wasn't going to happen, that I didn't have the necessary skill to make it as far as I wanted to go. It was really cool watching him because being his older brother, I'd always give him a hard time. Like he would in high school, he would go into his room and he would just like study flashcards, and he'd study SAT books and, how to get his SAT scores up. And I'd give him a hard time and be like, dude, let's go throw the football or something. And he was, but he was really diligent with it. And then I had, was just graduating from high school, and he was taking a lot of these entry tests and applying for scholarships. And he got into West Point, the Naval Academy, and the Air Force Academy.
Wow.
I mean, and it was what was cool is, like, the deal, Shawn. You see people on television or whatever, and you see them. We all love to watch a success story, right? I think that's why people love the Shark Tank so much. They want to root for the underdog. They want to see how somebody can go from nothing to something. And it was just cool because I got to watch my little brother do it right in front of me, and I got to watch the process too. Not really being able to connect the dots on, hey, will this ever amount to anything, or could we have just been hanging out playing and run around the neighborhood? And it was really cool to watch him be successful like that, because it really opened my eyes to what was possible if you applied yourself.
Damn, is he helping with your campaign at all, being an attorney, or?
You know what? He's not, but we have had some discussions about that, because I know that, if I get the opportunity to go serve in Congress, I know that there will be a lot of legalese, a lot of documents that I have to, look through, and having somebody that speaks that language and reads that language, and somebody that you trust.
Yeah.
That's going to be huge.
Yeah, I'll bet. Well, at what point did you? I mean, 17. That's late, in your childhood.
Yeah.
And basically early adulthood. At what point did you decide you wanted to be a SEAL?
So it was right after that time period. I think I was 18, 19-ish, right around that time frame. I knew that I wanted to be in the military. My parents had done a pretty good job, I think, raising us to understand that, freedom isn't free, even though that's cliche and it gets said all the time. We grew up in Yuma. There was a Marine Corps Air Station in Yuma, and I remember them pointing out Marines at our church and even service members all the time, and being like, hey, those guys do something that's way bigger than themselves. Make sure you show them respect. And that was something that always registered with me, in that there were people that once they became adults, their focus wasn't merely making money or providing for their families, healthcare, insurance, etc. There were people out there that devoted their lives to a service that was so much bigger than them. And that was something that, always resonated with me. And so I thought to myself, that might be something that I want to do when I get older. And so as I was getting through school and realized I didn't have what it took to play football at the levels that I wanted to play, I started doing a lot of reading and a lot of studying. Okay, if I'm going to make this decision, if I'm going to go into the military, what route do I want to go? Because I knew there were a bunch of jobs that you could do. And the special forces community to me was very attractive. One of my favorite authors is a guy named John Eldridge, and he writes this book. It's called Wild at Heart. And he talks about, and it's a faith-based book, but he talks about how the biggest question that every young man has is, do I have what it takes? Do I have what it takes to be a man? Do I have what it takes to be a warrior? Do I have what it takes to be a good husband? Do I have what it takes to be a good father? And we're always asking, we've always got that question. And so this was long before I ever read that book, but that was definitely a question that I had. And you might have had the same question yourself.
I definitely have.
Do I have what it takes to hang with the best? Do I have what it takes to make it through the toughest training in the Department of Defense? And initially the answer was no.
Really?
Yeah. I didn't make it through SEAL training on my first try.
Before we go into that, what drew you into the SEALs specifically versus Green Berets or Marine Reconnaissance, PJs?
So the research that I was doing said that it was the hardest in DoD, almost across the board. Said it was the toughest training in the Department of Defense. And the other thing too was I loved the water. Like I loved swimming. Or at least I thought I did. Right?
Yeah.
Until I got to, SEAL training where they actually use the water, they weaponize it against you to try and break you. And so those were a couple reasons right there. But then as I was researching and looking through, even though the SEALs were considered to be the water specialists, according to the literature I was reading, they still did everything that everybody else did as well. And as you go through that pipeline and then you start working with other groups, you realize that, yes, certain groups have certain specialties, but I just thought it had a really good variety. And my dad gave me a piece of advice when I was in high school. He said, Eli, the trick to being happy in your career is to pick something in life that you would basically do for free. He wanted to make sure that I didn't chase something because of money or security. And I think that was something that he did, and he wanted to make sure that his son didn't do it. And I'm glad that he did, because I think that's why a lot of individuals have midlife crisis, because once they get halfway through their life, they realize that we only go around one time, and life is short. And if you're not living a purpose-driven life, if there's not more to your life than just paying the bills, and I'm not knocking anybody for doing that, because some of the biggest sacrifices I've ever seen are men and women who work a monotonous job that they don't like to provide for their family. And I think that that's fantastic. But I think that you can do that and live a purpose-driven life, and where there's a mission outside of that's greater than those things.
I think you're absolutely right. I've seen a lot of that with when I used to train people. I would get a lot of these gents that would come in, and they'd be in their 50s, late 40s to early 60s, and it's like they were making up for lost time.
Right.
They were it's almost like there becomes, and this isn't everybody, you know what I mean, but there becomes like this fantasy of what it would have been like if they had done X, Y, or Z. And in my instance, what I was seeing was, what would it have been like if I would have been a SEAL. And a lot of that was guys that chased the dollar, that became extremely wealthy. And what I've noticed with people that become extremely wealthy is it's like this never-ending beast that you're just feeding,
Yep.
And it's never enough. And then they figure out this is about experiencing things, not money.
100%.
So man, I'm glad you said that, because I've never actually put that into words like you just did. But
Yeah.
interesting.
No, it is. I noticed that too. So after failing and then coming back, and I became a SEAL at 25, and then I made my first $1 million at 35. And by all accounts, people looking from the outside would be like, "Oh man, this guy's got it figured out, man. He's crushing it." But to your point, it's true. I mean, I've been poor and I've been wealthy. I'll take wealthy any day, but it in my opinion, it doesn't fulfill you. And I think that's why you see so many celebrities that they get to this, or pro athletes, or whatever it is that you put on a pedestal. They get to this level and we all think, oh, they've arrived, right? And then they have problems with addiction. Often you'll see suicide. And a lot of it, in my opinion, is because when you get to the top, or whatever that level is for you, or whatever you want to achieve, and you realize you're still the same human being. You still have the same flaws. You still have the same fears, the same anxieties that you did before. Even now, a lot of times they're elevated because it's a lot further fall from the top, right? And, that's why my faith is everything to me, because it's not something that the world can take from me ever. And, but yeah, it's just been interesting to be able to experience some of those things and see that, King Solomon talks about it in the, book of Proverbs, how it's all a waste of time. How it's all vanity. It's all a waste of time. And it's, I know that probably sounds depressing to a lot of people out there that are chasing it. And I think most of us, we're the type where we're like, well, that's great, Eli, but I'll figure that one out on my own. I'm gonna keep chasing this, and do chase it. I think that you should experience it for yourself. But there's so many things that are bigger in life than title and money, and that's one of the reasons that I know I'm really not worried about. People ask me all the time. They're like, so let's say you become a congressman. What makes you think you're not going to be like everybody else? I've seen a lot of things that a lot of people haven't. I've experienced a lot of things that a lot of people haven't. And I know where it leads. And so this isn't about another feather in my cap. It's about, once again, service. And it's, once again, this country's in trouble. And it needs the next generation to step up and say, I'll go. I may not be perfect, far from it. I don't have all the answers, but I'll go.
Man, that's refreshing to hear. All of it for where you're going. It's like I was saying at the beginning of this, when I talk to politicians, they're always, it just never seems genuine.
It's theater.
Yeah.
It's theater. It's put on the blue suit with the white shirt and the red tie, get the American pin flag, and this is the approved narrative. This is what you can talk about. And people are sick of it. They really are. It's one of the only reasons I think that a guy like me can even run in today's world, because people are just like, well, he might not say the politically correct things. He may not look like a politician, but I think he's telling me where he's really at.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's sad. It's sad that it's taken the current events that we've been experienced to get to this place, but I am grateful to see that it's not just me. There's a bunch of guys that did the same types of jobs that we used to do that are recognizing how much trouble we're in. And they're like, okay, foreign and domestic, I'll go. I can't do much worse than the people there now, right?
No.
So
we'll get into that in a little bit. But so you joined, you went to Buds, you didn't make it the first time. What happened?
Reality happened. No, it's the toughest training in the world, and I was immature, and I wasn't well prepared. And because I didn't do what I needed to do to be prepared. And so, it was interesting, man. I actually made it through Hell Week, which I would say the majority of team guys would tell you is the hardest part of training. Some will say it's not. I guess it just depends on how you look at it. But I made it through that week, and then about a week and a half later, I was performance dropped from training.
Really?
Yep.
What was it?
What was what?
Was it the runs or was it?
It was a combination. I'd failed life-saving 3 times.
Oh,
And then I went to an academic review board, and they were like, look, we know you're tough. You made it through Hell Week, but we need the best of the best here, and you're not measuring up. They were like, you failed to run, you failed to swim, you failed an obstacle course, and you're ranked in the bottom 25% of your class.
damn.
Yeah. Which is, I mean, it's like that, that's hard. It's hard, but it's how SEAL training is designed. It's good, and I deserved it. And one of the biggest reasons I believe I was ranked in the bottom 25% of my class was because I was immature. And I wasn't, like, if there was a job to be, at Buds, it's not just, hey, timed runs, timed swims, and O courses. It's like, hey, we need that office cleaned over there. After hours, once the training day is done, who wants to get it? My hand wasn't flying up in the air like, hey, I got it, I'm on it. And it was just, my attitude was more self-preservation than being a team guy and taking one for the team. And I think a lot of the times that comes with maturity, and I lacked it. And so I absolutely deserve to go away, and I'm glad that they keep the standards, and I hope they always do. I hope they keep those standards high.
Yeah. How old were you?
I was 22.
22?
Yep.
Where'd you go afterwards?
I went to the USS Gettysburg in Mayport, Florida. We called it the USS Regrettiesburg, but I thought that might get you, dude.
Oh, man.
But
what were you doing there?
I was a gunner's mate. So, worked in the armory, worked on the ship's small arms, and I did a lot of sweeping. I did a lot of brass polishing, a lot of cleaning. And it was good. It was good for me because I needed to grow up. I needed that, an extra dose of tough love.
I've never talked to anybody on this about fleet time.
Really?
So let's talk a little bit about fleet time. How long were you in there?
So they recommended that I come back in a year, the SEAL instructors. But if the CO from the ship let me go, then he wouldn't get a replacement for me. So they were like, no, we're not letting you go early. And so I did 2.5 years on board the ship, did 2 cruises on the ship. And, it's interesting to me, and my hat is off to the men and women in our Navy that do that job for 20 years, because it's not an easy life, man. It's not. Like, to me, and guys like us, it's kind of like being on a floating prison. It really is. I mean, think of a 450-foot boat with 400 plus people on it. You work, if you're underway, typically, you work from reveille's at like 6 a.m. Your day will start at 7 after chow. You'll go to probably 5 p.m. at least, working your day job. And then you'll stand a night watch every night.
Every night?
Every night. So you'll stand either the 8 to midnight, the midnight to 4, or the 4 to 8 every night. And there's no like days off on Saturday or Sunday. You're always underway. Like it's just constant. And so like when you're out for a month at a time, which was very routine for us. I mean, you're working a month straight that schedule, and it gets to the point where people get burnt out.
Yeah.
And it's not like the teams where your reputation is based on performance per se. It's conventional military. So you don't get, in the SEAL teams, you get treated very well.
Yeah.
In conventional military, it's completely different. So it's to the point where they, at times will have to have like an aft watch that sits at the back of the ship and looks over the back of the ship, for, other vessels, but also for people that will just jump over the side.
Did you guys ever have that happen?
No, we never did, but it did. It happened on other ships. It never happened on our ship, but it does happen.
Damn, that's like watching water boil.
Yeah, it's wild. It's a wild life, man.
Did you get a lot of flack coming from buds? Was there a lot of animosity towards you?
A little bit, and I think one of the biggest reasons is because guys that come from buds do not want to be in the fleet. So you have an attitude, a chip on your shoulder, and I think that's the biggest thing. And also, I think there's like probably a little bit of a superiority complex that comes with it. Like, hey guys, I wanted to be a SEAL, not do this job. So I think they're called buds duds, or buds failures or whatever you want to say. But I think a lot of it is because of the attitude that buds duds show up to the fleet with. And I think that's where a lot of that comes from. And I struggled with that attitude as well. I struggled to take ownership of my failure for a while. I remember showing up to the ship, and my master chief was talking to me, and he, looking back on it, he was just talking about, I can't remember how the conversation went, but I remember getting defensive and talking about how I didn't deserve to be dropped because I'd made it through Hell Week and I never quit. And I still hadn't taken ownership of it yet. And I could tell as an older, wiser leader, like he knew that I needed to take some ownership of that, but I wasn't ready to take that ownership yet, and because I was immature. And I think that's one of the greatest things that you can ever realize is that, hey, 95% of the time in your life, you're where you deserve to be. Now, and I want to preface that with everybody starts from different places. But once you've been given the opportunity, and that's what I love about America, once you've been given the opportunity to go out and start working on things, we have people in this country. I think I was sharing with you last night at dinner. A third of the millionaires in the United States every year weren't even born here. They're immigrants. Because they come here, they size up the landscape and the situation, and they say, you're telling me what I have to do is I have to work my tail off. I have to make really good decisions, and I have to sacrifice, and I just do that over and over and over again, and sooner or later I can live in that house over there. Yeah. And the stats show it all the time. A third of the millionaires created in the US every year are immigrants. And that's to me, that's what I love so much about this place, is like, if you're willing to take ownership of where you're at and where you want to go, and if you're less focused on where you start the race from, but just where's the finish line for you, and how am I going to get there? You can live, you can live the American dream. You can be successful here. And it was the same in the teams. Now everybody can't go into the Navy or the military. I get that, right? But that was just another experience for me, where I realized that if you work your tail off, and you're willing to take ownership and you're willing to sacrifice, you can do something great.
I'm glad you said that. So you went back to Buds.
Yeah.
After 2.5 years, you got off the USS Gettysburg.
Yeah.
How was it showing back up?
It was interesting because when I was there the first time, I was in E3. When I came back, I believe I was in E4, maybe in E5. Yeah, I should know that. Yeah, I think I was in E5. I was in E5 when I came back. So there was a little bit difference there in that you had more responsibility, but it was scary for me because as a kid I was diagnosed with asthma or exercise-induced bronchitis, and so I was horrible at the runs, like because my lungs, even after albuterol treatment, only function at like 60%
Oh,
of
wow.
what they're supposed to for their size, right? And so like I was almost every run I passed, like I would come in right at the bubble, maybe 10 seconds to spare, maybe more, like usually like 5. Like I remember how you'd hear them counting down on the beach, like
Yeah.
5, 4, 3, and
damn.
Crane comes across the finish line. And usually I was dry heaving every time. But so the second time I came back, I caught pneumonia like right in first phase. And so I failed my first 2 runs in first phase.
Oh, shit.
And they were like, hey, look, if you fail one more run, you're gone. So here I am. I had just signed orders to come back to SEAL training, knowing that if I didn't make it through, I was going to have to go back out to the fleet for 4 more years, be back on that floating prison, knowing that I probably there was a decent chance if I couldn't get over this pneumonia, I wasn't even going to make it back to where I was the first time. So that, as you can imagine, created, just a lot. I mean, really, there was a lot of anxiety and a lot of pressure and a lot of fear, just knowing that.
Yeah. Damn, you failed the first 2. How'd you even get in with that? Did you lie on the medical exam or?
Well, so like I said, some doctors had said that I had asthma. Some doctors said I had exercise-induced bronchitis. So I told them that I had exercise-induced bronchitis. But by the time I was older, like I could pass the Navy physical, fitness test or whatever with decent scores. And so they're like, okay, yeah, because there's a lot of kids that have like breathing issues or asthma when they're younger, and then as they get older, it kind of levels out quite a bit. And so I definitely didn't play it up. I definitely downplayed it, like, hey, this isn't a big deal at all.
Yeah.
But it was just something that I really wanted to do. And so I found a way to make it work. And the way I was able to make it work was by getting really light. I walk around usually around 220 pounds, but I got my weight down to like 175 so that I could, just
Nimble.
Yeah, well, just so my lungs could keep up with a smaller frame, right?
Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah.
But you made it.
Yeah, I made it, and with Bud's Class 256, and then I went immediately to SEAL Team 3.
Is that where you wanted to go, was Team 3?
I wanted to go to the West Coast. I don't recall necessarily wanting to go to a certain team. I just wanted to be on the West Coast if possible.
Well, let's take a quick break real quick. I know you went to Chris Kyle's platoon, right?
Yeah.
So we'll pick up right there when we come back. Hear an exclusive story about Eli Crane is a Navy SEAL sniper on Vigilance Elite Patreon. Become a... Fuck! Damn it. Hear an exclusive story about Eli Crane's time as a Navy SEAL sniper only on Vigilance Elite Patreon. Subscribe now. All right, Eli, so we're back from the break. You just showed up to SEAL Team 3. You're in Chris Kyle's platoon. Is he a chief at this point, or?
So I'm not in Chris's platoon yet.
Okay.
So the very first thing, we checked in and SEAL Team 3 was deployed. And so they had like a command, like somebody, like a chief that was running stuff back at the team that had also checked in after the team was deployed. And so we would report to him every day. There were like 5 of us that went from my buds class to SEAL Team 3. And so we were just showing up to the team. We'd clean a little bit, and then, they told us that they were going to try and send us to some schools while the team was gone. And we wouldn't be joining them. And so I was like, oh, this is good, because my wife was living in Tucson. She'd just finished up her degree at the University of Arizona, where I had dropped out of to join the Navy years before that. And so I was like, oh, great, we can start our life together. And so I was like, why don't you move out here? And so she moves out, and I'm like, they're not sending us on this deployment. We're just going to go to schools. This will be a good little, one of the more chill times, I think, while I'm doing this job. And sure enough, she moves out. 2 weeks later, they're like, yeah, change of plans. You're gonna deploy. You're gonna go overseas and join up with, one of the deployed task units over there. And so they had to send us to SEER school first. They sent us to SEER school. I can't remember what happened, but the other guys, I think the other 4 or 5 guys, they all went to the same SEER class, and then they had flown over before me, and I went like 2 weeks after them. I went to SEER school by myself, and then I flew over by myself. So that was kind of wild, flying over to a war zone by yourself. No guns. You don't know what you have no context for what that's going to look like. And so, but flew over there, joined up with Bravo platoon at SEAL Team 3, and the OIC was a guy named Rourke Denver.
Okay.
And then joined that group, and it was cool because they put us through a little bit of like some FAM courses, like making sure that we knew what we were doing, and then they started bringing us out on ops. Like they let us turret gun, they let us carry the 48, the 46.
What year was this?
So this would have been 2006.
So it's hot.
So right as you were getting out, like I was, getting in, and so I was in Habanilla at the time, and it was a really good experience. And by the end, they were working us into the rotation and just trying to make sure that we were, because when we went through an SQT, they didn't have, and I'm sure they didn't have for you either, but we didn't have night vision, we didn't have lasers, so all of that stuff we had to kind of learn on the job.
Wow.
But yeah, it was, I felt lucky because we knew that we were the only guys in our class that were getting into the fight that quickly.
Damn, so you went straight from Bud's SQT to SEAL Team 3, and roughly about 2 weeks later, you're on the ground in Iraq.
So it probably would have been more like a month and a half, probably on the ground, but still real quick.
Time.
Real quick. Yep.
Damn. Were you nervous?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I remember because my wife had moved out with me, and I remember one weekend, or right before I left, she was pretty upset with me because I just wasn't present, and my mind was just like, I knew what was in front of me. I knew I'd never been into a war zone like that before. I knew I didn't know really any of the guys that were already on the ground working together in that platoon. And I knew I was flying over by myself. And it was just like, that's a lot. That's a lot. And that's where my headspace was. And so, yeah, there was definitely a lot of anxiety there.
Yeah, but was it literally just you on a C-17 and a bunch of...
No, so some of my flights were civilian flights going over, and
Oh,
they had
okay.
me dress. They had me dress as a civilian going over, and I can't even remember all because you have to take multiple flights, but I just remember the final flight in, calling somebody. I was given a phone number, called this phone number, and somebody came and picked me up at the airport and drove me to where I was going to be. And it was interesting because then I showed up and they were like, "Hey, go talk to GM1 Pierce." And you probably never knew Dave Pierce, man, but he's probably the raddest armor to ever live.
Really?
Yeah, ginger dude. Like, I show up, they're like, "Yeah, go talk to GM1 Pierce about getting a weapon." And so I find who this guy is. I'm like, "Hey, GM1, I was told I could come get a weapon from you. Where can I get one?" And he's like, "At the Gittins store." Like, he was just a total smartass right off the bat. And I'm like, who is this guy? And he, just had this straight face, but you came to appreciate this guy and just love him. He's one of my best friends now, but it was just like, come on, bro, can I get a gun? Quit giving me a hard time. Just give me a gun, dude. But
What kind of stuff are you guys doing?
the platoon was doing a lot of sniper overwatches and a lot of DAs, and so occasionally we'd get thrown in on some of that, and we were just doing a lot of turret gunning. And as a new guy, obviously all the collateral duties, make sure that the trucks are gassed up, they're clean, make sure that the heavy weapons or the crew served weapons are clean. We did a lot of that. We did some FID as well. It was our job to also, when the partner force, which I'm trying to remember, I think it was just some Habaniya or some Iraqi army unit that we were partnering with. When they would come over, they would usually come over a couple hours before the ops. And I remember, it was our job to watch them and make sure that they didn't get into anything or go anywhere they weren't supposed to go. And it was funny because we had this little makeshift movie theater, I remember. And, we were told, you guys can let them have one snack, and then, you just put on a movie for them. And I remember one of my buddies, Nate, one day he put on the movie Team America. And I mean, I was just like, oh my God, we're gonna get in so much trouble for this. But it was pretty funny just watching these guys watch Team America, And so we would do a lot of that. We would do a lot of the collateral duties, and every once in a while we got to get in on a pretty cool op.
What were you guys hitting? What kind of targets?
There was a lot of guys making V bids, IEDs, that type of stuff. A lot of residents, resident homes, just stuff like that. But for me, I wasn't really, as a new guy that came over 3 months into deployment, I wasn't involved in the targeting or the intel side of things at all. It was just like I was on a need to know basis.
Yeah, go hit this house.
Yeah.
Were you guys getting in a lot of engagements? Was it a lot of dry holes, mixtures?
Yeah, I would say it was I would say it was more like a mixed bag.
Yeah.
Definitely a hairy event here or there, but for the most part it was just overwhelming our target or the enemy before they could do anything. And you know how that goes. I mean, when you roll in to somebody's neighborhood with 15 or 20 team guys, and I mean, can you imagine being on the other side of that? It's like you have two choices. you surrender or you're dead. That's it. You know, I mean, you might, if you're good, you might get one or two of us, but you're not gonna survive that. You're
Yeah.
just not. And I think you see real quick that most people make the choice of survival.
Yeah. Walk us through your first op, like your first real world op. What were you carrying? What were you feeling? What was the anxiety like?
My first real world op, I was in a turret.
Really?
Yep, I was on a 50 cal, and it was interesting because have nothing to compare it to. You don't know what that's going to be like. You don't know if the moment you leave the base, people are going to be shooting at you. And like, I remember, you know, one of the things I noticed was how they would use like telephone lines to try, you know, down telephone lines to kind of restrict access. And I remember spotting at night, you know, down telephone lines, and guys being like, "Hey, make sure you duck back in," and just, you know, holding security for guys while they went and did their mission. But yeah, we had a 50 cal. I think I had my M4 in the turret with me, a SIG 226 on my side, and I think my M4 had a Hipley laser on it.
Oh wow, that's
It's
old
like
school.
They're big, basically a big infrared spotlight.
Yeah.
With the crosshair in the middle of it, and so, you know, it was just pretty wild. That was, you know, for me anyway, pretty mundane op overall, but just being, you know, a month and a half out of buds, it was pretty cool.
What do you think your biggest fear was heading out the door for that?
Just failing, letting the guys
Failing.
down, right? I think they had shown so much trust in us to even bring us out on ops because for the viewers and the listeners out there, most of the time you'll go through a 1.5 year workup before you'll ever go on a deployment. So just the fact that they trusted us to, you know, go on these ops with them and watch their back was a big deal, and I definitely didn't want to let them down.
Man, it's cool that you said that. You know, I was expecting getting shot, getting blown up. Your biggest fear was letting the team down.
Yeah, and I mean, that doesn't mean that I didn't have those other fears too, because I did. I knew going in that the biggest risk was to get blown up with an IED.
Yeah.
And, you know, some would argue that, especially when you're turret gunning, you're pretty much the most vulnerable person, because half your body's sticking out of the vehicle.
Yeah.
But you know, I'm just grateful that, you know, I got to come home to my family and my kids, but there's a flip side to that too.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, you know that others didn't, and I think that's been one of the things I think I've struggled with the most, is just some of my buddies that didn't come home, and, you know, why you ask, why me? Why did I get to come home? And, you know, it's maybe a little narcissistic, but even sometimes you let yourself go there and, well, if I was there, would it have changed anything? You know?
Yeah. Did you guys lose anybody on that deployment?
SEAL Team 3 did, yeah. Our platoon did not. But Task Unit 2, Bruiser, probably, I don't know, maybe a month after I was there, Mark Lee was killed. He was the first SEAL killed in Iraq, and he was killed down in Ramadi, which was like 30 miles from us. And then, so we had worked that night as well, and I remember coming back, and I don't remember if I was on the op or if I stayed back, but I just remembered we just hot washed the trucks, brought them back, got them ready, because by that point we knew that one of our guys had been killed right down the road, and so we just regassed up the trucks, got them cleaned, and then we convoyed down to MSR Michigan to Ramadi for the memorial service. We held like a little memorial service there, and I remember kind of feeling like a fish out of water because I'd never met Mark, and he was a new guy like me. That was his first deployment, but I remember wanting to show respect, to the older guys and to his brothers who knew him, yeah, I mean it was pretty crummy because not long after, I think it was Ryan Job was shot. I think in that same engagement, and he was shot in the face, and both of those were new guys. And so as a new guy, you're thinking to yourself, well, is it because they're not wired tight? Is it because they're not doing, why is it new guys that keep getting hit? And so you're running the math in your head. And it wasn't but maybe another month and a half later that Mikey Mansour in that same deployment was killed as well, another new guy. And so I just remember, thinking, hey, the odds are that it's going to be, if somebody gets killed in this unit, it's for whatever reason, it's going to be one of us.
Yeah.
But, and I know that that's silly, but you do start picking up on the trend, right? But yeah, I mean, it makes it really quick when guys at the team, are dying.
Yeah. So you wrapped up that deployment.
Yeah.
Actually, you know what? If you're willing to talk about it, what was that memorial like? Because I've heard of guys having Viking funerals out there on, in country, and if you don't, then that's perfectly fine.
Yeah, I just remember. All I can remember was an anxiety level because guys were pissed. Yeah. Guys were furious. And I'm like this new guy, peon, who just, wants to show respect and not, make anything about me, and just like head down, I remember, like I think I walked up to the casket or something, and we were supposed to do something, but I can't remember if we were supposed to salute it or what we were supposed to do. But somebody came up to me afterwards and had said something like I didn't show enough respect or something like that. And I was like, well, man, I apologize, dude. But it was one of those moments, I think, where guys are pissed off. They're looking to take it out on somebody. And when you're a new guy in the team, like you are a prime target. But I do remember they were playing music in the background, and one of the songs they played was "Crazy Game of Poker" by OAR. And I remember that because it was one of my favorite songs. But I just felt awful for Mark and his family. I knew that he was married at the time, and I felt awful for the other dudes that just lost their brother. And I felt awful that I'd never got a chance to meet him just because I'd heard so many good things about him. One of the coolest things, because I've got a chance to become pretty close with Mark's mom, Debbie.
Oh, really?
Yeah, Mama Lee. She's an amazing woman. and she still does a lot today for the community. And one of the coolest things that I learned about Mark was that he would carry the 48 without a sling. And if you've ever carried a Mark 48 machine gun for longer than 5 minutes, you'll realize really quick that you want a sling on that thing.
Yeah.
Or to put the carrying handle like in your carabiner on your kit, but he wouldn't do it. Like, he was just a beast.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that made me respect him a lot.
He was my headmate in Buds when I showed up for a while.
Was he?
Yeah, yeah. He was really humble, cool guy to be around.
Was he?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But so you wrapped up that deployment. You come home, back with the wife.
Yeah.
How's that going?
It wasn't good. It wasn't good. And the biggest, I think one of the biggest reasons it wasn't good was because of immaturity, on both of our parts. But we had also just had, it's like pretty close after I got back, I got put into Chris Kyle's platoon immediately. And then during ULT, I think it was, we had our first kid. And so not only did I have Chris Kyle as my LPO, who loved to just hammer new guys, like he loved it. And so I had that going on at work every day, and then I'd come home and I had a newborn in my bedroom at night. And so you combine that with immaturity and two people that are trying to figure out how to be married and live together. It was just on top of, I would say some, extra stress that comes with that job. And, it was a combination for, I don't know what a good word is, maybe dysfunction.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's not like, I'm not saying it was always bad or anything like that, but one of the things, Shawn, that I want to do for the rest of my life, man, is I just want to try and bless other people and help other people, man, because when you front and when it's always a facade and you're always trying to put on this, like, oh, everything's hunky-dory all the time, you're not helping anybody.
Yeah.
And most of the people out there watching this right now, that's not their reality. They're struggling with something, and it took me and my wife a while, like, probably took 10 years before I felt like we had a good marriage.
Wow.
And I didn't know that would ever even, I was at the point where I didn't know that was even possible. Like, it was even in the cards for me. You know how you have a certain experience for even a year or two and you're like, oh, this is probably what it's going to be like. There's probably no changing this. Well, when you've been at something for 10 years and it's like, at best, good, most often it's mediocre. You're like, this is the ceiling. I mean, this is the reality. And so, I mean, at that point it was tough because there were just a lot of brand new dad. I didn't even want to be a dad while I was in the military because I didn't want to be, I didn't want to be away from my kids and I didn't want to be an absentee father. So now we've got a newborn sleeping in our room every night, go in, dealing with one of the biggest hazers known to man. And it was just like, talk about walking around on eggshells at work. I mean, I don't know what your platoons were like. I don't know what your new guy experience was like. But when, I had buddies that we graduated that were a couple doors down in a different platoon, and they're like, nah, man, it's chill. We don't get messed with much, and not us, bro.
Really?
Oh, dude, yeah. It was like, we were always like watching each other's back. I mean, it was always like, it's almost like you resume swim buddy rules. Like, hey, don't go in there without a swim buddy. Could get out of control quick. But looking back on it, man, it was it was good in ways, just because what doesn't kill you makes you stronger.
Yeah.
And,
What was he doing?
I mean, it was just like, it was like, there were a lot of rules, right? A lot of rules. Like, I remember one of the rules was, you have a crazy week, training or whatever, and then you get to go home, spend time with your family on the weekends, right? But that, not in my platoon, bro. Like, the rule was you were supposed to be at any bar in San Diego within 20 minutes, ready to buy a beer, get choked out, and clean up puke out of the restroom. Like, I remember, and having, like, if it didn't matter if you and your wife had like a date night and you guys needed some time. Date night? No. Get your ass down here. Be at Danny's in 15 minutes. And it was just like, thankfully, because I had a newborn at home and Chris like was big on family, he let me off the hook more than the other guys, but because I was the only guy. There was only like, I think 2 or 3 guys in that platoon that even had kids. So Chris did like, he did give me a little leeway because I had a kid.
Nice.
Yeah.
Did you go to sniper school, that platoon?
Well, this gives me another great opportunity to talk about failure.
Perfect.
Yeah. So I did go to sniper school, but I didn't make it through sniper school. I made it through pick and then scout, and I didn't qualify with the M4.
Oh, okay.
And so you have to qualify expert to move on, and I didn't qualify. So that was hard because I came back and basically, I had to tell Chris that, that I'd let him down.
Wow.
Because I was the only one that he sent.
Oh, man.
Yeah. I mean, you can imagine.
Yeah. Especially of all the snipers out there to have to tell that to.
Yeah. Yeah.
Chris Kyle.
Yeah.
Damn.
It was rough, man. And I mean, you want to talk about like feeling like a complete turd. You know, I did. And thankfully I got the opportunity during the next workup to go back through, and they didn't make me go through pick and scout. They just let me go to sniper school once I qualified.
No, nice. For those listening, sniper school, I don't know if it still is, but it used to be broken up into 3 portions. And so pick was learning a lot of taking pictures, sending them over a secure net, over SATCOM, radios, all that kind of stuff.
Right.
Scout is all stalking. So basically learn all the reconnaissance type stuff, building high sites, all that kind of stuff before you actually get to the shooting portion.
Right.
Correct?
Yep.
Cool.
Yeah. And, man, it's crazy. Like when you look at just like scout, for example, like stalking, when I was going through sniper school, the second time, and I actually got into the 3rd portion, which is actually the sniper portion where all you do is shoot, but you still have to do some stalks and then some live fire shots in the midst of it. It's wild when you just look at what you have to do. For the audience out there, I'll give you like an idea of like what I remember out in Atterbury, Indiana, which is where we do our sniper portion. They had this grass stalk, and it's 1,000 yards, and so you didn't really have. I mean, when you show up, like they drop you off on the edge of this field, and then the instructors will be 1,000 yards away where the targets are. And so most of it is just grass, and it's like, probably about that high. And there's a tree here or there, but most of it's just grass. And so you had to get within, I think it was like 300 yards of your target. And you don't have a rangefinder, so the only thing you can use to range is the reticle in your scope, your Night Force scope, which is what we had at the time. And so what you would do is you'd basically spend 3 hours crawling in the grass so that they couldn't see you. And you would have a drag bag, so you'd have your gun tied to your body, tethered to your body, and you would drag your gun so that it wouldn't create, like, you wouldn't wear it as a backpack to create like a bigger profile so that they could see you. So you have like 40 guys on this grass stock that, you know, you all take off at the same time. You know you've got 4 hours. You've got to get within, build an FFP or like a final firing position within like 300 yards of the target. You've got a bunch of instructors at the other end. All of them have spotting scopes, and they know where you're starting from. They know what time you're starting. And so all they're doing is just burning the field, like looking at the field. And then behind you, you have what they call walkers, which are other instructors. And so how it works is everybody takes off, and guys are like, you know, looking at the field. Is there any dead space? Are there any like high points of ground that I can use to stay behind so that these guys over here can't see me? And everybody takes off, and you hope you pick a good route to start going down, because sometimes it's hard to tell like what the terrain's going to look like 500-600 yards down the road. And so you take off, and if you hear a whistle blows, everybody has to freeze right where you're at, because the instructors down on the spotting scope have seen something. And so what they'll do is they'll be like, okay, so what they'll do is they'll put the spotting scope on one of the walkers, one of the instructors that's just walking the field with the snipers that are moving through. And it'll be like, okay, say you're a walker. All right, Shawn, I got a student. He take 20 paces forward, Instructor Shawn. And so you'll take 20 paces forward, and then they'll be like, okay, come right 5 paces, and then you'll come right 5 paces. Be like, okay, back 2 paces left, and then you'll take 2 paces left, okay? And then he'll be like, all right, there's a sniper at your feet. I know that's where I saw him duck in. And if there is a student, you know, right at his feet within a couple feet of him, that's 1 hit, right? And so I think you can only get 3 hits
Per stock.
And you can't get the same hit twice. If you get the same hit, and it gets a lot harder than that, because even that's difficult. But then once you know, you get within 300 yards, that's where, or within that range where you have to build a final firing position and take a shot. This is when it gets really hard, because now you start building a final firing position, and so you've got clippers on you. You know, you're vegging up. You're taking veg that matches the environment that you're in, and you're stuffing it in your ghillie suit. You're preparing your hat, and you're doing it all like really slowly, so that because these guys' movement will pick up quicker than anything else in their spotting scope. And so you try and find a good bush or something to get into, or even just some tall grass, and you're moving really slowly to try and make sure that there's not, you know, that there's enough veg in between you and them to where once they start burning the area, they won't be able to see you. But once you say, okay, I feel good about my spot, I've got enough related veg in my ghillie suit, I'm ready to take my shot. I don't think that they're going to be able to see me once they start burning this area. What they'll do is you'll be like, say I'm the sniper, I'll be like, all right, shooter ready. And I'll call out, because I'm still 300 yards from them, right? So they can't hear really my voice very well. So I'll be like, hey, Instructor Shawn, I'm ready to take my shot. And they'll be like, okay. So you'll come up over the radio and you'll be like, all right, I've got a shooter that's ready. And you'll make sure that you're not close to me yet. You'll make sure that you're 10 yards from me. And then you'll say, okay, I got a shooter that's ready. And so what the instructors start doing is they know that there's a shooter 10 yards from you. He can't be further than 10 yards. And so they start burning the bushes, the grass. Can they see anything? Can they see a glint off of your scope? Can they see like a piece of your shoulder that you didn't veg up or whatever? Shit. And they'll be like, okay, you know, move to 5 yards, and then instructor Shawn, will move 5 yards from the shooter, and now they'll start burning 5 yards around the instructor. It gets worse. And if they hit you, if they see you at any point, that's one hit in your FFP for, being visible to them. So if you get one more, you're done. So then they'll be like, okay, move within 2 feet. So the instructor moves like to where he's like right on top, damn near right on top of you. And as you're laying there behind your gun, you're like, of course they're going to see me. I mean, you're damn near standing right on top of me. But that's how it works. And you have to be so well concealed that even when he's 2 feet from you, they can't see anything. And it's not done yet, because then you still have to take your shot. And whether it's a live fire shot or it's a blank shot, you have to set things up, because when your gun, when you shoot a shot, it expels a lot of the gases, right? So if they see grass move, right, or anything, that's a hit. And so and it's still not over, because you have to be within 10% of what you range that shot at. So there's no rangefinder. You're using the reticle in your scope to range how far they are from you. And if you're more than 10% off, you fail. And so and that's just the stalking, some of the stalking portion.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's wow.
Yeah, it's legit, man. It really is, because like, especially once you've been like, not all the stalks were grass stalks where you had to crawl the entire time. But I remember one of them was no kidding, a grass stalk that was 1,000 yards, and you had to crawl for like 3 hours just to get up. I mean, crawl for 30 minutes and let me know how you're feeling.
Yeah.
And it's impressive what the guys have to go through to get through.
Damn. So if you get 3 hits on the same stalk, you're done?
Yeah, you failed the stalk.
Because it seems like, whatever, they're producing the best snipers out there, but it seems like if you get caught right off the bat, and you're crawling,
yeah,
you're not gonna, they could just track you.
Yeah.
The whole time.
Yeah, it's.
So if they don't want you there, you're gone.
Yeah, I think there's some, I noticed that hunters did really well.
Really?
Yeah, guys that were just used to, always trying to outsmart the game and be camouflaged, really well. I noticed that they just did. Guys that really spent a lot of time out in the field hunting seemed to do really well at sniper school, which was pretty cool to see.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
How many guys made it through that?
We had a pretty high attrition rate. We actually lost, I want to say 5 or 6 guys. We lost a couple because of sniper school, but we lost probably 4 or 5 guys because of a van fight. Yeah. No kidding. Like some guys went to, I think Bloomington, Indiana, where IU is, and got into a van fight coming back and just destroyed the van. And the cadre wasn't having it, even though the guys were like, we'll pay for it out of our own pocket. And so a bunch of dudes got shipped home.
Damn. Typical team guy shit.
Yep.
Did you guys have Murph there teaching?
Nope.
Murphy? No? Just curious. Oh. So you went back to the team.
Yep.
I guess if you want, we can breeze over that second deployment. You went back to the team as a sniper.
Yep.
And then what?
Yeah. And then it was unfortunate in ways, because by that point, we were no longer allowed to even carry our weapons on ops. Yeah. So,
What?
yeah. So, it was 2010, and we were turning over. This was my third and final deployment in the teams. We were turning over. with the Iraqis, and they wanted to de-escalate everything.
Yeah.
And so snipers don't typically do that. And so we weren't doing sniper overwatches anymore. The majority of what we were doing was DAs, a bunch of FID, and one of the biggest missions we had on that deployment was to try and find a guy that was MIA or KIA, and they hadn't found his body yet. And it was Major Troy Gilbert.
Oh.
He was an F-16 pilot, and he was shot down over Fallujah. He was bailing out some SF guys that were in a pretty bad tick. I think back in 2006. I think that's when this whole thing went down, and his F-16 got shot down, and they got to the crash site, and there was enough, like blood in the cockpit that they thought there was a good chance that he was dead, but they weren't sure. But his body wasn't there, and so they embedded a guy with us, and I can't remember who exactly he worked for. He was a former SF guy, but his job was to help try and bring any KIA, MIA guys home. And so we spent a good deal of that deployment looking for the major.
Did you get him?
We didn't. They did get him. I think it was a group of team guys, maybe 2 years later, finally brought his remains home. But it was pretty cool. I've got to meet his wife, Ginger, and their kids. Dude, it was crazy, man. He had like 5 kids, and he had 2 twin baby girls that were like less than 1 when he was killed.
Oh man.
And they are the kindest, sweetest people you've ever met. And I remember I was at an event in Scottsdale. It was like a golf tournament, like raffle or something. And I think we donated some products to be raffled off, and they asked if I wanted to come up and be a part of it. And I didn't really know who was going to be there, but when they were like, Gold Star, this Gold Star family's going to be here. And I did the math, put the name together, and I was like, oh man, that's... a part of me wanted to tell her, hey, there really are guys overseas looking for your husband. But I didn't. I felt a little torn. I didn't want to bring up any like upset her or anything like that. But I went, and I decided to go introduce myself, and I introduced myself to her, and I told her, hey, there are guys looking for your husband. I know we were looking for your husband. And she was just the sweetest lady I'd ever met. And I could tell she was glad to hear that, because I know they get told that by a lot of people, like a lot of high-ranking folks, but to actually have somebody that was on the ground, watching, sledgehammers and pickaxes go into concrete slabs in case he was buried underneath it, I think you could tell it meant something to him.
Damn. Where did they find him? Do you know?
It was like in the same area that we were. It was within the same area that we were working in. So it was kind of, unfortunate. But I'm just glad that they found him.
Yeah.
I did feel bad for the family though, because I think that they had like 3 funerals for him, and I'm just glad they finally got to. Actually bring his remains home,
Was he?
Yeah, he was dead.
Yeah, I mean, was he? Did they fucking mutilate him or anything?
I didn't hear
a lot of that.
I didn't hear about that, and I'm kind of glad I didn't hear about it, because I remember when they were giving us the brief on, hey, you guys are going to be looking for the major. I remember they showed us pictures of his kids and his family, and that was something that always got to me. Like, even when Chris was killed, like I remember being fine through the memorial service, but as soon as I saw pictures of his kids, man, because they don't get to choose.
Yeah.
They go through life without a dad, and that just hurts, man.
Yeah. Yeah, that's something that always got me at the memorial services, when you see a 5-year-old get a folded up flag handed to him.
Yeah.
And the bagpipes playing. But let's take a break.
Yeah. Let's do it.
All right, Eli, we're back from the break. We had a little discussion, and I was going to go right into kind of your transition and reintegrating into civilian life, but you had brought up a specific story, so let's cover that real quick. It was on your first deployment?
Yeah. Sometimes people will ask me, like, were you ever scared? And the answer is yeah, I was. And one of the times that was the scariest for me was actually on a sniper overwatch on my first deployment, where we started getting mortared. And so to like kind of unpack that, typically we would, we'd go in at night, and we would take a house that we thought would give us good sight lines for whatever we wanted to watch. And one day we were watching MSR Michigan for people planning VBIDs, or not VBIDs, I'm sorry, IEDs. And we also knew that some partner forces were going to be patrolling through that area, so we wanted to make sure that if they came under contact that we could support them. And so I remember we came in, in the middle of the night. There was a family in the house, and when there is, and there often was, you can do a couple things. You can either make them stay in the house, or you can let them go. And either way, especially at that point in the war, that was in 2006. The locals kind of knew what was going on, whether you let them out or you kept them, because they would kind of check in on people, because they knew that type of stuff happened. Like if the Ryan family didn't come out, send their kids to school by 0800, they knew there was a good chance the Americans were in their house, right? Or if you let them go, they're probably going to tell people, hey, there's Americans in our house. And so I remember going in there, and then, taking this house that we thought had good sight lines, and then getting all set up and ready to go for the next day. And as a new guy, my job wasn't to be on a sniper rifle. My job was to hold security. And so I remember my job was to watch the west side of the house. And so I found a good spot by a window a little bit back into the room where I could watch, pretty much everything that was going down on the left side of the house. And, I took off a lot of my gear, but just had like my frags like laid out by the window. And I had a Mark 48 machine gun. And, as the sun came up, and most of our snipers, we probably had 4 or 5 snipers on the op. Most of them were facing north, watching this MSR Michigan, road that was out in front of the house. And I remember, I don't know, maybe I don't know, maybe an hour or so after daylight, one of our snipers took a shot, killed a bad guy. And then probably 3 or 4 more times our snipers started engaging people. And I remember one of them, shot this this guy in this car on my side of the house where I could see it. Like it was shot him through a car windshield, like the front windshield. I remember looking out the side of my window, and sure enough, this right in the driver's side, front of this windshield had a big old spider vein bullet hole in it. And this guy was dead. One of our snipers shot him through the head, and it got pretty eerie really quick because the sniper shot him right in front of a school.
Oh.
And so I was watching this. Everybody's amped up. Shots are being fired. We're starting to kill bad guys. And I remember probably 10 minutes later, a bunch of women and children. First, a couple women or a couple kids, I think, came out, saw it. And then the screaming started, right? These women and children are just screaming and crying. And then I remember them pulling his dead body out of the car and pulling him into the school. And my spidey senses were started going through the roof. It just made my spidey senses knew.
Yeah.
They were like, there's no better way to start a fight than to rile up women and children. Because as they get riled up, emotions start getting riled up, and then people want revenge. And I just knew it. I knew we were going to get hit. And so, sure enough, like 45 minutes later, the small arms start. First it's indirect. You can just hear it cracking over the heads. And then it starts getting more direct, and you can start to hear it, hitting the building a little bit. And, everybody's on full alert, just ready to rock and roll. And I don't know, maybe 10 or 15 minutes later, the first mortar, you hear it pop up in the air. And there's a guy named Mike, one of our snipers, who was on the same level as me. We weren't on the roof. We were on the level below the roof. And he had propped his Mark 11 up on a desk, and that's what he was using as his platform. And
Mark 11's a sniper rifle for those that
Mark
don't
11
know.
is like a sniperized AR-10 or a 7.62 magazine fed sniper rifle with a suppressor on it. And I remember Mike. Mike was a badass. Like Mike was, tough as nails. Definitely the type of guy you don't want to mess with. And I remember as soon as that first, mortar round popped up in the air, I heard Mike's voice change, and he yells over to me. He's like, "Take cover," and I was like, if Mike's telling me that, and I can hear it in his voice, this is serious. And so, first mortar round comes up, hear it explode, not a direct hit, and then they just start popping these mortar rounds up in the air. And I'll tell you, Shawn, I don't think I've ever been as scared in my life, because it is like the movies, man. You can hear those things whistling through the air. And the difference, like when you get shot at, it happens so fast, you don't really have time to be scared, right? But with mortar rounds incoming, and you can hear those things whistling for 5-6 seconds in the air, the whole time you're thinking, is this it? I wonder if this is a direct hit, if this hits this house, we're done. And thankfully, these guys really didn't want it. I could tell they didn't want an extended fight. They kind of wanted to just see if they could hit us with the mortar rounds and then get the hell out of here, so we didn't pinpoint their location and kill them. But because I think they only launched like 4 or 5 mortar rounds. One of them, I do remember one of them, though, hit on the west side of the house, probably like 60 yards from my window, and frag, flew up and through the window. And that was, pretty close. But I'm just glad that, they were off on their shots. But then our AOIC at the time called in Artie, and from I think from Habanilla. And that was pretty cool to hear the big guns start, start going off in the distance, and then the tree line that we thought we were taking the mortars from, started getting rocked, and the fight was over at that point. But that's a scary feeling, man. Not only hearing mortar rounds, whistle through the air and not knowing where they're going to hit, and you're taking small arms fire, but like when you're in a sniper overwatch or a situation like that, you're usually in one of the worst neighborhoods on planet Earth, and there's like 10 to 15 of you, and you're in somebody else's city, and you're constantly thinking, how many bad guys can they muster to send at us?
Yeah.
And when you know that you're probably not going to get extracted till nightfall, because nobody wants to risk the vehicles in the daylight, which we didn't always own. We usually own the night. That we could be in for it, for a while.
Yeah, it's like a feeling. I've been in a couple of similar situations, and it's like the feeling of helplessness. There's nothing you can do.
Yeah.
You can't figure out where it's coming from. If you can, like it's the tree line, you can't.
Yeah.
There's no target to shoot. You're just gonna eat it, and hope it stops soon. You know, hope you don't eat it, and hope it stops soon. And it's completely out of your control.
Yeah.
But yeah, damn. How did you guys get out of there?
Like I said, I think on that op we were gonna stay for a couple days, but I think they decided to pull us. I think they pulled us that night, and as soon as it got nightfall, we went to a rally point, and our guys came in and picked us up.
Yeah. But other team guys or?
Yeah.
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 Damn. And when you say 10 to 15 guys, they're spread out in different OPs, right? Not
On
all
that
in
one, we
house.
were all in the same. We were all in that one. We were all in the same house. But yeah, that does happen sometimes where you spread them out. But I want to say there were probably 10, 12 guys on that op.
Okay.
And then we had our partner force was downstairs holding security. But yeah, it was it was an interesting, definitely. And that was probably, it wasn't the closest call I've ever had, but it was the most scared I've ever been in combat, just because the anticipation factor that come with mortars, and you just being able to hear it for 5-6 seconds before it hits somewhere, and you're wondering where it's going to hit. That.
Yeah. What was the closest call?
The closest call would have been on my next platoon, my third and final platoon, and we got ambushed by three guys at about 110 yards, and I was like laying in the street, nowhere to go, just watching tracer rounds just fly over us.
Oh shit.
Yeah, it was pretty wild, man. I was point man that night, and so I was leading us. We had like a 600 yard patrol into the target house that we were going to hit, and we were going after a dude that was making V-bids and IEDs, and just a really bad dude. And unfortunately, it was the first night that we'd given our partner force the 8-digit grid coordinates of the target that we were going to hit, and sure enough, we got lit up. That's been going on in warfare for a long time. Just partner forces playing both sides of the fence, and it was kind of surreal, just because there were, I think, two guys had AKs, and then one guy had it looked like an RPK, a belt-fed heavy machine gun, and he had belted together probably two belts, probably 200 rounds of tracer. So you could just see every round just like flying over your head. And thank God they were shooting, maybe a foot or so high. And so none of us got hit. But when I went back that night and looked at it on because we had a Predator, we had 2 Apaches, and then a C-130 overhead, and I watched the Predator feed, and we actually used some of the tools to like measure how far we were from them, and it was 110 yards, which
Damn.
is not that's not far for those type of weapons at all. So
Shit.
that was definitely my closest call.
Well, let's talk about your transition. And so you came home, you did 3 combat deployments.
Yeah.
Come home. Do you have 2 kids at this point?
I had 1 kid at that point. The other one would come in about a year.
How was that reintegrating?
You know, it was still, like I said, my marriage didn't get good until like 10 years in. And so it was still pretty tough, because I came home, and probably 2 years after coming home, while I was on shore duty, after having our second kid, we started our small business bottle breacher. And so you bring the stress of running a small business together into a marriage that's not even, really good to begin with, 2 small kids, and, in my case, somebody who was dealing with whatever mental issues I was dealing with, but I had some pretty severe anger and rage issues at the time. And I think I had some pretty legit survivor's guilt, and maybe some other stuff going on. But, I was just in survival mode, because I knew at that point I was getting out, and I was watching friends of mine get out and struggle to find something they could sink their teeth into, not just find some job, but, so that was, it was a very difficult time for us, but it was I'm grateful, because I'd learned so much in the teams about unconventional warfare, and I saw the application in business. And so just use that same drive, the same resiliency and tenacity, and use the same type of tactics, unconventional tactics, to try and build a business. And so it was a bittersweet time.
Interesting. So how long after you separated from the teams did you start Bottle Breacher?
I started it while I was in the teams.
You started while you were in the teams.
Yeah.
How old were you when you left the teams?
Let's see. Oh, man, are you going to make me do math?
Yeah.
Thought you weren't going to put me on the spot.
Well,
let's see.
Where I'm going is you made your first million at 35 years old.
Yeah, so I was probably 33 years old when I started it.
So you made your first million in 2 years of being in business.
Yep.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it was. And obviously a lot of it had to do with Shark Tank. And obviously it's not, in business, it's not what you make, it's what you keep, right? But in year 1 at Bottle Breacher, we did 150K, which just blew my mind. When I started this thing, I wanted, like $500 a month. That was my goal for like supplemental income. I wasn't even thinking about growing a company necessarily, just making some cool products and selling them for supplemental income. And so in year 2, we really started ratcheting things up, and I think we were going to hit we were projecting about $900,000 to $1 million in our second year. And then that halfway through the year was when I pitched to go on Shark Tank. And we were doing about $80,000 a month out of that 1-car garage.
Damn.
Yeah.
$80,000 a month?
Yep. And it was a 1-car garage, Sean. So it was a manufacturing facility in a 1-car garage. Dude, we had 4 laser engravers in there. We had a polishing wheel in there. I had a little Honda EFI generator because my house couldn't support all the drain. from all the equipment. We had 2 laptop computers in there. Like we had shelving for the outgoing order rack, and then my kayak was like still hanging in the ceiling. Like it was crazy, but it was wild. I remember going to an open casting call for Shark Tank after I applied. I had applied online and not heard anything from them. So I went to an open casting call, which was like probably 10 minutes down the road from my house, down the 163. And I remember I didn't even practice my pitch. I just walked. I had this cool cigar box. I laser engraved the Shark Tank logo on it and my logo, the Bottle Breacher logo. And I remember, did you know Kevin Lace? You know Kevin?
I had never met him. I know who he is. I've never met him.
So he worked with Clint Eastwood on the movie American Sniper, and Kevin was in my platoon from 06 to 08. And so Kevin was kind of like a technical advisor on the movie, and he reached out to me when when they were wrapping things up with the movie and asked me if I would make bottle breachers for the cast and crew of the movie. So it was really cool. I got to make Clint Eastwood a bottle breacher, Bradley Cooper a bottle breacher, and just all the guys, whatever names Kevin gave me. And so we did a really cool like limited edition bottle breacher for those guys. And Kevin did me a solid, and he got a picture with him and Clint Eastwood holding up his bottle breacher.
Oh, that's
And so
cool.
I took that picture and I put it on the inside cover of the cigar box. And so I went to an open casting call where only the first 500 people got guaranteed the opportunity to pitch. So I showed up like at 1 a.m. so that I could pitch these guys at like 1 p.m. the next day. And I got in front of this lady. Her name was Mindy. And I opened the cigar box, and it had the Clint Eastwood, picture with him holding his bottle breacher. And then I had an assortment of some of the other SKUs that we did, because I wanted her to see it wasn't just one thing. Like there were varieties that we could do, right? And it happened to be like Father's Day weekend. And so I laser engraved Happy Father's Day on some of them. And I was like, ma'am, would you believe it if I told you that I've sold $80,000 of this product out of a 1-car garage about 15 miles from this location? And she's like, no, you haven't. And I was like, so I pulled up my phone and I had my Etsy app on my phone, and I started scrolling, and I showed her, this is how much revenue that we've done. This is how many orders we've done. This is how many messages we have. And then I showed her the product, I showed her the variety of products, because you only have like a minute to pitch to these guys. And then it's right. They want you to keep it real short so they can get people out of there. And so I said, do you have any men, like a dad or a brother in your life that would think that this was cool? And she's like, are you kidding me? My dad and my brothers would freak out over this thing. She happened to be from like Iowa or something. And like, just, and I was like, well, I'm going to leave these with you. This is how much we've done in sales. This is the backstory. I'm still an active duty SEAL. This is Clint Eastwood. Does he look happy with this thing? And she's like, yeah. And so they told us when we did the open casting call, they were like, look, don't call us, we'll call you, right? And if you hear from us, it won't be for a couple weeks. That was on a Saturday. Monday morning at like 8:30, I had an email in my inbox like, hey, we love the pitch. We love the product. You're moving on to the next round. Now you have a week to make a video. So we had to call a videographer, figure out like a script and how we were going to shoot this thing. And then, and we made a video, and then we just started going down the Shark Tank pipeline process.
Damn, that is cool. So
Yeah.
you were in there before you even separated.
Yeah, it was crazy. I actually, when I went to Sony Picture Studio to pitch that in the summer of 2014, I was still on terminal leave. So I had like a month left of terminal leave. And so it was wild, man. It was wild. Wait, no, that's not right. I'm sorry. Sometimes the dates get mixed up. But so I separated in October of 14. We went on the show in I think July or August of 14. I was on terminal leave at the time, but then when I got out of the Navy the month before our episode aired. So it was just like boom, right from one thing to the next.
Man.
And it was, it's like, I talk about my marriage because I realize there's people out there that are struggling to, figure it out. And that's why I talk about it, not because I'm proud of, not being a good husband or something like that. But so yeah, we went from SEAL teams, 2 young kids, right into the kind of like the deep end entrepreneurship wise. And we went the day before Shark Tank, we made like 150 units on a good day. When I woke up the next morning, I had to make 60,000 units and answer like 20,000 emails. And as for people out there that make something, you don't snap your fingers and that happens overnight. It takes a lot of innovation because and we used to say this in the teams, but what used to work yesterday, it's not going to work tomorrow. You have to innovate and figure something new out. And we did.
Yeah. What is it that you think brought you and your wife together?
Yeah.
After struggling for so long.
It was 100%. The catalyst was a Christian men's retreat that I went to.
Really?
Yeah, 100%. And I know that sounds like something that guys like us would typically avoid like the plague, and I did for a while. I had a good friend of mine who invited me to come to this Christian men's retreat. It was called Wild at Heart. And he was also a Shark Tank business owner. He's like, Eli, you got to come check this thing out. And I was like, oh man, that sounds pretty lame. I was like, what are we going to be doing? Like singing Kumbaya or doing trust falls, or is somebody going to break out rattlesnakes or something like that? But no, man, it changed my life, man. It was awesome. And it just showed me how I hadn't been stepping up. I hadn't been fighting for my wife. I'd been so busy fighting with her and trying to be right that I hadn't fought for her, and I hadn't fought for her heart. And it was so cool, man, because they take you back into their story. And it's like 400 guys that show up there. It's like from all walks of life, every profession. I've met other team guys there. I've met rangers there. I've met doctors, all sorts of people, all sorts of guys that are, struggling with a lot of the same things. And it was just really cool because, like if you go back into the biblical story and the biblical narrative, we do have an enemy who's come to steal, kill, and destroy. John 10:10 says the thief has come to steal, kill, and destroy. And that ties into the whole good-evil narrative. Do you believe in evil? Do you believe in good? What's the origin of it, right? And if you start asking some of those serious questions, the Bible has a lot of answers on that. Now, I get it. Not everybody believes the Bible. I get it. But it was an eye-opening experience for me because it framed it up in a way that, like, it just made so much sense for me. It just made so much sense to me. And it, one of the things they cover is, why does God give you a masculine heart as a man? Because you were born into a world at war, and everything that you love, you're going to have to fight for it. And I realized that not only was I not fighting for my wife, but I spent a lot of my time fighting with her. And, it just made me want to be a better husband. It made me want to be a better dad. I knew that, unlike in the SEAL teams, I was given certain weapons for certain jobs. I knew I didn't have a lot of the weaponry or the training to be either of those things. but I wanted to pursue it, and I wanted to get better at it, and I wanted to work at it. And so it kind of lit a fire in me to just come back and, really work at those things. And it changed everything, and it took time. But, and there were other issues too. Like like I told you, I was dealing with a lot of anger and a lot of rage. And there's a verse in the Bible that says, I stand at the door and I knock, and whoever answers the voice, or whoever hears my voice and answers the door, I will come in and eat with him and he with me. And I think it's so cool. That's something I love about the gospel, is that when you read the gospel and you read how Christ, and Jesus was here on earth, he didn't make anybody follow him. He didn't make anybody follow him. But he's knocking at the door. And I realized that there were certain rooms in my heart that I didn't let anybody into because I needed them. That's how I protected myself.
Yeah.
Hey, that room, you're not allowed in there, Shawn. I don't care if you were a team guy or not. I need that. That's how I protect myself. And if you get too close, watch out. And I realized, man, that mentality was causing a lot of pain and a lot of hurt to those that were around me. It was good at times. It was like there was a dichotomy there. I could use it to protect us, but the moment you cross that line, I'd use it against you. And I remember praying about it, and I was like, Lord, will you tear this? Will you just come into my heart, and will you tear all of this out, all of this baggage, all of this anger, all of this rage, because I don't want it anymore. I'm tired of trying to carry it around.
Yeah.
And he did.
It worked.
Yeah, it did.
Good for you.
Yeah, man.
How are you and your wife now?
Pretty awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we're still two human beings, and we still both struggle with selfishness. And I think that there's a verse in Ephesians that says, as husbands, we're supposed to lay down our lives for our wife like Christ did for the church. And when you look at what Christ did for the church, he died for us. And I was dissecting that verse. I was looking at it. I was like, not only you're not willing to die for your wife, you're not even willing to forgive her, or you're not even willing to put your pride down and love her and fight for her. And it was just like, it was so cool, man, because it just it gave me some goals and a new perspective on how much I'd let her down. And and it was cool too, because there is good and evil in this world.
Yeah.
And I know you've seen it. I know some people have different answers for where that comes from. But I think it's spiritual, man. And so I think a lot of this stuff that we deal with, I think all of it has spiritual connotation and spiritual foundation to it. And it's like, just like we were talking about getting shot at. You can be getting shot at. You can hear those mortars whistling through the air. But if you don't know where they're coming from, good luck,
Yeah. Man, I'm really glad we covered all that stuff.
Yeah.
It's a real honor to be able to interview you.
Well, again, man, out of respect, I know that that's not the answer. A lot of people don't want to hear it. A lot of people would disagree with a lot of that stuff, and I'm cool with that. And I'm glad we live in a country, in a place where you and I, or myself and whoever's listening or watching, can disagree or not believe the same thing, and we can openly talk about it.
Yeah.
Because I realize there are places around this world, if you talk like that, you get killed. You can be thrown into prison. And to me, that that right there is evil. I want you to be able to have a different opinion than me. You know, that's one thing I love about this country, man, is that like, and I hope it never changes, is that we can agree to disagree and we can have difference of opinions and we have the right, you know, to worship however we want to worship or not at all. But the way I see it, and we were talking about some other stuff at dinner last night, but if you've stumbled across something or found something that worked and you don't share that with others, you're not a team guy at all.
Yeah. Very true. Let's start moving into politics. So this is the portion where we cut the show, and from now on, the rest of this is going to be over on Rumble.
Why do we got to do that, dude?
Well, you know, there's the YouTube-friendly version, and then there's
Right.
the not-so-YouTube-friendly version.
But I thought I just got done talking about freedom of speech. Did I not just get done talking about it? I'm just
You
kidding,
did.
dude. I'm just kidding.